there are lots of rumours swirling about other things behind this, which again are, I gather, the subject of an injunction, but they're pretty well spoken about in Parliament, and hopefully those will also come out soon.
Rupert Lowe, the Reform UK MP for Great Yarmouth. Great Yarmouth has a very special place in my heart. It's where my father spent much of his childhood, so I love what you are doing for the area. But I want to come to this breaking news first today, Rupert. Obviously, we all know we have to be careful. However, Axel Rudakubana has pled not guilty today in the Southport Massacre case. You have been constantly reminding folk, do not forget this story. Do not forget this cover-up. Are you still shocked that not one MSM journalist has asked either Keir Starmer or Yvette Cooper what they knew when about the charges relating to both the production of ricin and the possession of an Al-Qaeda manual, which after today's court case, we believe he was in possession of, Rupert Lowe, from 2021 to 2024?
Well, good afternoon, Dan. It's a pleasure to be on your show. That's the first thing to say.
Great to have you.
The second thing to say is, yes, we keep reminding people not to forget about Southport. As you quite rightly say, it is sort of sub judice. We have to be very careful. And indeed, it was quite depressing in some ways when the Speaker told us we weren't allowed to ask any questions about it in the House of Commons. Now, normally you've got parliamentary privilege in the House of Commons, but it seems that this case has trumped parliamentary privilege. Quite where the truth lies, none of us yet know. Probably Yvette Cooper does, probably the Prime Minister does, probably a select few people do. But in the end, hopefully the British people will get the transparent truth and they can make their own minds up as to what the situation is. What's happened today, I haven't really been following it too much. I've got a huge story which has broken on Great Yarmouth involving some ammonium nitrate, which was dumped in plastic bags offshore my constituency, which I have an adjournment debate on tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock. So I've been quite tied up with that and a Westminster Hall debate on immigration. But it seems to me that this is probably another delaying tactic. And it will mean, I mean, who knows what he's going to plead now? I haven't followed it fully, but whether he's going to plead diminished responsibility or some other sort of issue, which delays the case and leaves people in limbo to an even greater extent. Now, as you probably know, there are lots of rumours swirling about other things behind this, which again are, I gather, the subject of an injunction, but they're pretty well spoken about in Parliament, and hopefully those will also come out soon. As I think you know, Dan, I'm a great proponent of transparent government. I think the government has lost sight of the fact that it is the servant of the electorate, it is not the master of the electorate. And if they just release the data in a transparent and clear way, the electorate, the British people, the people who are supposed to be omnipotent in electing a sovereign parliament, which should trump everybody else's ace, but now no longer does because the Quangos have taken over. Ultimately, you know, we want transparency, and then we can make our own minds up. It doesn't need jumped up politicians to preach at people. Just give the data to people and they can decide for themselves, and then they can put the cross in whichever box they want to put the cross in. That ultimately is what I'm striving for, as you can see with the questions I'm asking in Parliament.
Oh, absolutely. And I do want to come to some of them soon, because I think the work you're doing on transparency is utterly critical, actually. And it just shows that opposition MPs can make a big difference, can make a noise, because Reform UK, the five of you, the famous five, as someone described you to me last night, are making more noise at the moment than the entire official opposition Conservative Party, which really is saying something. It turns out the key to losing weight and keeping it off is not in carbs or fat or even in probiotic-rich foods. No, the end game of having a healthy weight, as well as more energy and a long, healthy life, comes down to a specific switch you can flip in your body to flush out unnecessary calories. Dr. Stephen Gundry is calling this caloric bypass. And by activating this specific process in your body, he has seen thousands, yes, thousands of people dramatically improve their health even at age 50 and beyond. This includes losing weight, getting tons more energy, and returning to the good health that they had in their youth once they simply address this one key to better health. Not only that, this is actually associated with improved digestion, strong feeling joints and muscles, smoother skin, and healthier lives, meaning it could be the key to a happy life. Dr. Stephen Gundry has lost 70 pounds himself using his research and has kept the weight off for over 20 years and counting. His digestive issues are gone. His health is fantastic and he feels younger and healthier than he did in his 40s. His video has been watched by over 20 million people to date, and you can watch it and learn more about it at thehealthyfat.com/outspoken. It's linked at the bottom of this video, but he'll teach you exactly how he has kept his weight off for free at thehealthyfat.com/outspoken. Click on the link in the description below this video. But now, back to the show. But I just wanted to ask one more thing on Southport. Your leader, Nigel Farage, has described this as the biggest cover-up of our lifetimes. Do you agree with him?
Well, until I know the facts, Dan, it's difficult to say whether it's a cover-up or not. But it's a bit like the Manchester police issue, which again is, I think, unfair to the police. As you probably know, we've taken out a private prosecution. I think it's extraordinary that people can break a policewoman's nose and threaten two armed police officers and now be out on bail when the actual police themselves have either been suspended or partially suspended. So the video footage is quite clear, and I just question what sort of country we live in when we treat our policemen like that, which will have knock-on effects on our policing generally across the country. And the miscreants who clearly perpetrated this violence on a policewoman, I think certainly broke a bone in her nose or wherever.
Broke a nose, yes.
They should be remanded in custody. I mean, you can't start attacking police women and men and expect not to be locked up. You should be locked up straight away. And I think most of the British people would agree with that. So look, there's all sorts of weird things going on. I think most of the British people would just like a return to common sense and fairness. And if we can start to get the data, we can actually understand how far off track the whole thing has gone. And then we have a chance to rebuild it, because if you're armed with the data, you've got something to base decision making on. If you haven't got the data, it's very difficult to decide what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And it seems to me that there's a disjoint between the ministers who are supposed to hold the civil service to account and the civil service who, as you know, have been infected with wokery, DEI, and almost every other sort of appalling recent development in both Britain and in America. America, it seems, are about to hopefully redeem themselves, and hopefully they're leading a trend that will catch on over here as well. But I think the civil service is now the tail that's wagging the ministerial dog, if you like. And, as Maggie said, advisors advise, but ministers decide. And a bit like a company, ultimately, if you have a weak board of directors, they don't hold the staff to account. And that's what we've got, a ministerial front bench where three of them have got a modicum of business experience doesn't, in my view, qualify them to hold civil servants to account, which is what the British public need.
It's interesting you mentioned two-tier policing there, because Harry Cole of The Sun directly put this question to Starmer overnight. And Starmer tried to deny the fact that he was involved in two-tier policing because he always stood up for the police. But as you say, how on earth does that fit with what happened in Manchester? But watch this and I'll get you to react off the back.
Does it get you that two-tier thing? It's unfair, completely unfair then.
Well, I'm going to stand with our police officers on the front line. I shook them by the hand and said, thank you for going to the most difficult scene that any of us can imagine. By the time I had arrived back in London, they were putting their riot gear on to go out on the front line, to have things hurled at them, to see their fellow officers injured and have people shouting at them two-tier policing, exposing them to threat. If you're asking me, do I stand with them or do I not? I stand with them every single time.
But not a word, Rupert, on the Manchester police officers who actually were completely wrongly, in my opinion, thrown under the bus because, to begin with, only part of that video had emerged.
Well, I think they were more concerned, Dan, with finding out who'd leaked the video than they are in actually ensuring that justice is done. So I'm with the police. Well, I think we've clearly got a two-tier policing system in the same way that we've got a two-tier judiciary. So, I don't trust one word that emanates from the Prime Minister's mouth. I always say, watch what the hands are doing and not what the mouth is saying. And I think in his case, that's doubly true. So, never answers questions in Parliament, spends most of his time overseas because he knows Labour are making the most disastrous mess in this country. I think people are seeing it. So if we get the transparent data down, I think they'll see it even more. And they'll realise that, as you said earlier in your introduction, we've got a two-party system which ultimately is not serving the British people properly. It's two cheeks of the same backside, as George Galloway so elegantly said.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.